The Federal Reserve is expected to announce a third consecutive 75 basis point interest rate hike today.
That's right. A lot of folks will be saying, ouch, because this action would mark the fifth rate increase this year. The aggressive move is part of the Fed's strategy to fight inflation. And this would come roughly 1 week after the Labor Department released the latest Consumer Price Index report. That CPI report showed prices in this country remained near a 4-decade high last month.
Joining us now is Mark Hamrick. He is a senior economic analyst for Bankrate.com. Mark, thanks for being here. Please explain to our viewers who is going to be most affected by this interest rate hike.
Americans, people who are participants in our economy. And so
That's
this is
everyone,
a very
Mark.
Exactly, that's what I mean. Everyone will be affected by this. This is a far-reaching action on the part of the Federal Reserve, and it reverberates all around the world, so it has a global impact as well. The people who have been feeling some of the pain year to date are those who have exposure to the stock market. We know we're in a bear market. We know that the housing market has slowed. Today we had the 7th straight month of decline in existing home sales. But make no mistake, inflation has taken all consumers hostage, businesses as well, and so the Fed is prescribing further medicine. And as you said, this is the strongest medicine that it has delivered in the sense of the third straight, presumably, interest rate hike of 75 basis points and the third of 5.
So one thing I try to think of as we talk about interest rates going up again is, and the doom and gloom about, okay, things will be more expensive, is, okay, there is a strategy to this. There is some thinking behind it. It's to cool the economy. It's to bring prices in line with what folks can afford. However, Jerome Powell did admit to making mistakes and not acting sooner, not thinking inflation would last as long as it did. So is there a flip side to this this Federal Reserve rate hike? Is it good news at all to anybody anywhere?
Well, it's good news in the sense of we have identified what the problem is with the U.S. economy. We all know what that is, and that's inflation. And the Fed is doing what it must, what it can to address the problem. And that is by trying to dampen demand through this series of interest rate hikes. And today's move, as well as what is projected down the road, is most significant because with what we expect to get, which is another interest rate hike, interest rates then move into restrictive territory, no longer neutral. And so think about the analogy of having put the foot on the gas in the early days of the pandemic, really to assist the economy. It rescued the economy among the other steps that were taken, maybe too much. And only in March of this year did the foot come off the gas pedal, and now we're slamming the brake. How much longer that brake is slammed through higher still interest rates, persistent interest rates, we don't know. But the Fed will give us an idea of what they think that could look like. And of course, the fear is there's a policy misstep and there could be a recession.
Yeah, that's what I want to follow up, because as you're discussing this, I'm imagining, I think we've all been in that cab or that Uber where somebody is going too fast and then slams on the brakes too hard and you're jolted forward. And that is, even as the Fed is trying to fight inflation, that's the worry, that experts think that the end result could be a deep recession or stagflation. Tell us what factors Fed Chair Jerome Powell and other members are really weighing when coming up with the actual number, and whether you think the 75 basis points is going to have that jolt or is more of a smoother pumping of the brakes.
Well, first of all, let's think about the speech that Chairman Powell made at Jackson Hole, which was regarded as a very significant speech by a Federal Reserve chair, because he talked about, if not the possibility, perhaps the likelihood of pain that Americans will be experiencing as these restrictive measures take effect. That they also include the shrinking of the Fed's $9 trillion balance sheet, which has accelerated here in the month of September. But what that could look like, of course, is a rising unemployment rate. And the job market has been perhaps the strongest performing aspect of the U.S. economy so far this year, recently at 3.5%. Chairman Powell wants to attack that strong job market, get the number of unemployed more in line with the number of job openings.
A really delicate balance. Let's hope they tap the brakes instead of slamming them. Let's hope they don't swerve too dramatically.
Well, and there are other parts. I mean, that's the only lever that the Fed really has to play. But there are other parts of the inflation equation that they can't tackle, which is supply chain.
That's right.
But all of that's still a challenge to come.
Mark Hamrick, thank you very much for chatting with us. We'll see you again soon. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.